Good morning and welcome to the August 17th edition of the Gold, Goats, and Guns Short News. My name is Tom Luongo. I hope you're all having a great day. I want to talk today about what's happening and the changes that are happening in U.S. electoral politics. I think it's pretty obvious at this point that we're not going to see a blue wave this November. That from the various special elections and the primaries that have been held so far, it's pretty obvious that even the mainstream media is beginning to admit that things are breaking Trump's way. And so if that's the case, then the best that's going to happen here is that there's going to be a red tide. And the bodies that will wash up on shore will be those of the Democratic leadership that put together this lack of electoral success and a lack of plan for how to achieve said electoral success. Because when you go into an election like this one with identity politics and the economy is roaring and all of that, there's no way that you're going to win. And I knew this earlier in the year. And what's the most telling statistic that I've seen so far is a tweet that I saw from Charlie Kirk this morning, which says that, where he said that support for Trump amongst blacks in America is up to 36%. Now, anything above 20% is death for the Democrats. They can't win with numbers like that. And I've been saying for a while now that I really do believe that this loss of the minority vote will turn them into a permanent electoral minority, much the same way the American First Movement post-World War II, led by Robert Taft, became a permanent underclass politically in the United States for about 40 years, up until the 35 years, up until the election of Reagan. And so it's pretty obvious that that's where the Democrats are headed, because we're headed for the end of cultural Marxism. And this reminded me of an article that I wrote earlier in the year called Kanye West and the Utopia Trap. And I remember when Kanye took a big dump on the entire political establishment, and I immediately wrote in the Gold, Goats, and Guns newsletter that this was a pivotal moment in electoral politics, and everything would change. And I told my subscribers then back in, say, May's issue, which was June's issue, sorry, because it dovetailed perfectly with what happened with the Trump-Kim summit in Singapore. And these two men, in their own ways, changed the world for the better. So I'm going to read that article back to you now, because it's very, very important that you understand the dynamic at play here. This Kanye West, I think Trump owes a debt of gratitude to for those 7 words that he uttered that changed literally everything. All right. Kanye West and the Utopia Trap. The culture war is over, and the Marxists lost. Now, they were always going to lose, because cultural Marxism cannot sustain itself without feeding off of other people's wealth. It's a parasitic ideology that first consumes the host, then drives it mad to destroy everyone else. After the 2016 election of Donald Trump, when Kanye West had his famous meltdown on stage and walked off during a show, it was a pivotal moment. Now, many saw an enfant terrible throwing a tantrum and crying for attention, but I didn't. I heard a man whose worldview was in flux and causing him real pain. And it's the kind of pain that changes a man. It's a moment when you look at what you've built and see it for what it is. And in Kanye's case, it wasn't his art that was plaguing him. It was the reaction to it, the system supporting it. He saw the politics and structure of the music industry rightly as just another mechanism of social control. And he railed against radio, MTV, and the rest of the distribution system. And he saw its place within it, how it was driving artists and fans apart to bicker and argue, while the real power lay with those controlling and stoking those conflicts. And then he torched it willingly with an almost hyper self-awareness. So we fast forward to now June, when Kanye emerges from his 40 days in the desert and tweets out, as Scott Adams put it, 7 words that changed everything. I love the way Candace Owens thinks. Now, Scott's right about that. I'm not sure about this whole golden age thing, that he talks about in the video that I linked in the article. But I am sure that Kanye West paid his promise to his fans that he pissed off in 2016 that he would be a change agent. That he wasn't going to go along to get along, stay quiet and be a good boy, and reap the benefits of a system that he saw as corrupt and corrupting. Now, like Kanye or hate him, in that moment, you had to respect him. In the same way that today you have to respect Alex Jones. Because what he did that week goes far beyond red-pilling a large swath of the American black community about how the Democrats take them for granted and use them for their purposes. What he did was throw the entirety of cultural Marxism into the ash bin of history. Then he took a massive dump on the entire canon of identity politics, lit it on fire, and threw it onto the gatekeepers of culture's front door. I don't know how much of Kanye's original rant was calculated performance art, but I don't care. As an economist, I've trained myself to dispense with such nonsense. Because you don't measure a man by his intentions. You measure a man solely by his actions. And this is one of the fundamental issues of identity politics and Marxism. The insistence that intentions are more important than consequences. Cultural Marxists wrap themselves in the moral high ground, stating their intentions are noble and selfless. They are putting the community over themselves while denigrating those honest enough to admit to themselves that they act for themselves first and the community second. And this is their defense mechanism for deflecting criticism when their plans fail, which they always do. At least our intentions were pure. But as Ayn Rand rightly pointed out, altruism doesn't exist. One helps another person because it satisfies their own needs first and the object of their help second. Some people just get immense satisfaction in helping others. And there's nothing immoral about that. It doesn't taint their good works with the stain of profit. It simply is. So I don't care if Kanye did these things for purely selfish reasons or not. I don't care how many records he sold. I don't think he did, but he could be the kind of malignant narcissist his critics accuse him of, most of whom today side with the cultural Marxists. I just know that whatever his reasons, he destroyed the narrative of minority victimization, and he did it with the precision of a brain surgeon, cutting out the ideological rot in millions of brains with 7 words. Writer, I'm a bit jealous. As a human being, I'm eternally grateful. And this is why the culture war is over. It'll take some time, but this period of history is the culmination of more than 100 years of Marxism as the dominant political ideology. Their long march through the institutions is complete just in time to see all of those institutions fail. Now, they aren't failing all at once. A pension system here, a small country's hyperinflation there, but they are failing. Why? Because central planning in all of its forms is beset with what Friedrich Hayek called the knowledge problem. In short, it is that the most important knowledge, that of time and place most relevant to individual actions, is unknowable to the central planner. And that propagates errors in policy, which ultimately is capital destructive. It is why global debt is out of control. It's why the central planners that made the Faustian bargain with the banking cartel to create debt-based money to fund their utopia. It's the Marxists get the wealth distribution, but at the cost of the banks they and everyone else suffers. As we approach the moment where we finally reach the end of the societal road paved with debt, these institutions will fail more rapidly. Cultural Marxism is, like all collectivist ideologies, utopian. By divorcing intentions from consequence, it not only insulates itself from criticism, but sells itself as a path to a higher plane of spirituality which it cannot deliver. It justifies ends with means that are abhorrent, and like all psychopaths, blames its victims. It's never their fault when people are starving in the streets, throwing acids on infidels, or selling aborted fetuses to the highest bidder. No. Basic welfare is a right. Open borders, a right. Abortion, a right. And they scream louder the more you resist them. And that's the utopia trap. The idea that we can make heaven on earth by appropriating the life and time of another person through enforced communal responsibility. Now, on the other hand, is the staunch individualist like myself who understands that life is suffering, time is precious, and death inevitable. So no matter what bad decisions we as individuals make, they are still better than the ones the willfully ignorant and ideologically blinded make for us. So as the culture war grinds to its inevitable conclusion, we humans will emerge from this foray into mass insanity known as Marxism smarter, just like we did when we overthrew the high priests of the sun god and the divine rights of kings. And if we have people like Kanye West and, yes, Donald Trump to be our Loki figures, gleefully blowing holes in their utopian dreams, so be it. Because honestly, who's better suited for that job? This has been the August 17th edition of the Gold, Goats, and Guns Short News. If you like what you heard today, please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd really appreciate it. Also, you can turn on notifications so that you can partake in the Gold, Goats, and Guns Hour, which airs on Monday nights at 8 and Friday nights at 9 here on YouTube and Periscope, where I live stream events of the day and take questions and all the rest of it. Thank you very much and have a great weekend. You guys take care and keep your stick on the ice.